As usual, we are steps outside the Ara Parsegian Gate at Notre Dame Stadium, where the Irish wrapped up the home portion of their schedule with Saturday's 70-7 dismantling. 5 days from now, they will play what Marcus Freeman is calling the Super Bowl at Stanford. This is Irish Illustrated's Instant Analysis. I'm John Brice of Irish Illustrated Football Scoop. To my right, Drew Mintock. To my left, Tim O'Malley. Drew, we'll start with you. Not a ton of news coming out of today's press conference with Marcus Freeman. We'll touch on some of his commentary about Madden Faramo and the ability to step up and some perfect scores from when the guys were graded. But real news is Jeremiyah Love is a real Heisman Trophy candidate. He is really surging up the odds makers boards. You're working on some content there. You asked Marcus Freeman about it today.
It's curious because if you look at the last running back, for instance, to win the Heisman, Derrick Henry, he had over 300 carries just in the regular season. Jeremiyah Love might not even get to 200, so he doesn't have quite that level of touches. But I was curious, like, what else is he doing? How is he impacting the game? And Marcus Freeman touched on the passing game, of course, but then he also got into how good he's gotten in pass protection, that there were times in the past 2 years where they weren't even sure they should have him on the field in those situations. And now, I mean, you look back at the Boston College game, he's like punishing safeties and defensive backs who try and come after the quarterback. And also just his, like, you look at the quarterback keepers, he's often the lead blocker on those. He had one of those 2 weeks ago, got CJ Carr in the end zone. So he's doing all these other little things, and he's like, it's the fact that he's excelling on every play, and the opposing team has to account for him no matter what he's doing.
Yeah, real quickly on Madden Faramo, Marcus Freeman, very complimentary of his performance Saturday, tied for third on the team with 5 tackles, but he mentioned that entire group will have to step up. He also mentioned that King was playing, obviously, the best football of his career, and this will be an all-new challenge because it's an internal challenge. Marcus Freeman sharing that he had visited with Kingston Viliamu-Asa's mother this morning, and anyone who's followed us knows that that's a very special relationship, that King and his mom are very close. So we certainly send our well wishes to him in his recovery, but Marcus Freeman shed some insight there. It was also asking Marcus Freeman about why this team is so darn good in must-win games. 13 in a row a year ago, 9 straight this year. They really, in must-win games, they're 22-1. The one loss being to Ohio State. You could argue, those 2 losses this year, what prompted 9 consecutive must-win games. Nonetheless, Notre Dame responds to pressure, Tim, but does not play uptight.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is that they can play a little bit uptight, but you could have possibly played a little bit uptight out at USC, and that might happen at Stanford, but there's a little different level of opponent coming with Stanford. I do agree with Marcus Freeman that, Stanford has more than Syracuse, more to offer than Syracuse. They're playing a little bit better defense than they did earlier in the year. They can make it so you look at someone naturally is looking at the score, and it's 14-7 Notre Dame instead of 21-0 Notre Dame. As long as that continues to snowball and adds up into the fourth quarter, Notre Dame has pulled away from Stanford out there 3 straight times as well. It's kudos to this team for being able to do that because there's still pressure. You have to handle it. I feel like he must get it out of them during the week because you just don't see them playing all that tight. Now, I said that about USC. They when they have a lot on the line and USC doesn't, it's happened. I've covered 3 games out there where Notre Dame had to win to make the playoff. It's just a harder situation. USC's a talented team. They had nothing on the line any of those 3 times. That is not an easy win. It's kind of like Alabama and Auburn this week. Yeah. It is that type of rivalry situation. So it's a very impressive. I'm always going to joke that one mattered, but you know what? That was also the team that was better than Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame played tight in that game, but they came right down and scored to start that contest.
Yeah, and that was what prompted Marcus Freeman to say this is the Super Bowl, and he reiterated that. He doubled down on that, and Stanford is an improved team, Drew. Look, Stanford just beat Cal in the big game, their biggest rivalry of the year, and got Cal coach Justin Wilcox fired in the process. I know it's early, Drew, but your thoughts on Stanford and what you've seen out of the Cardinal as they perform this year under Frank Reich, who has said he'll be one and done. But when you follow the search and catch up with some people, there's some people at Stanford that would like to see Frank Reich stay around beyond this year, even in any capacity.
To your point, Marcus Freeman brought this up. Frank Reich, like if this is his last game, they're going to be extra motivated for that too. I still need to do more digging on them, but I know they switched quarterbacks to Elijah Brown recently, who's a former like blue chip quarterback, replaced Ben Gilbranton, who, if anyone remembers, was the starter for the Oregon State in the Sun Bowl a few years ago. So they do have another quarterback.
If you remember that, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, so definitely a guy that maybe adds some different dimensions. Obviously, you mentioned that Cal win too is a big step up. That Cal's not a terrible team. I think they were 6-5, 6-4 coming into that game. So shouldn't have been a cakewalk, and they won pretty easily. So maybe he adds a little extra juice to this team. going forward and against Notre Dame.
And then, T.O., I wanted to talk to you. One other injury note of note. Tate Johnson officially listed out. You had that first over the weekend that he would definitely be out this week, and best case scenario be returns 4 weeks from now in the playoffs. But Marcus Freeman saying Noah Burnett is hoping to kick today and tomorrow, and that they would leave open some potential for Noah Burnett and or Eric Schmidt to team up for place kicking duties this weekend.
It'd be great to see Noah Burnett kick before the playoffs. You've been on that train since last year with Mitch Jeter. Now, Mitch Jeter's a better kicker than Noah Burnett, too. But no matter what, you want to get back out there. I would think if he's healthy enough, he would get a chance to kick at Stanford. Eric Schmidt can start. You can still get Noah Burnett a chance to kick at Stanford, and then the competition can begin anew. I'd actually like to see Eric Schmidt start in case he is the guy that has to kick during the playoffs, and see him attempt to field. How many field goals are going to kick against Stanford here? They got to kick 2 field goals against Stanford, one by Eric Schmidt and one by Noah Burnett. But it would be good to see one of them get out there, build a little bit of confidence. Hopefully Schmidt's 10 extra points can carry over. I wanted to circle back really quickly to Madden Faremo. We're going to touch on this on the podcast too. We're going to see Faremo tonight. Max Bulla said of Faremo, he is going to play when he is as good as those other 4, not because he's a 5-star freshman, not because he needs to be put out there to placate anything. I point that out because obviously he made this journey, and he's a different player than KVA, but he is that good. The other guys, the 5th guy now, the 6th guy before KVA got hurt, is not going to join the group unless he's that good. Don't look for the rotation to continue. Like, okay, who's the next guy in? Next man in is only coming in if those guys are getting hurt at this point. Faremo was always knocking on the door.
Yeah, Faremo has been knocking on the door since he arrived, even with the wrist injury. When he first got here, he still impressed people with just how seriously he approached preparation and how much he dove in, and then obviously how physically gifted he was. Kahanu Kia was the other player mentioned by Marcus Freeman, but again, that would be a game-in-hand situation or an emergency situation before he would play. Drew, any other things that stood out to you today from Marcus Freeman's press conference? And maybe one thing I did want to ask either one of you about, or both can chime in. Marcus Freeman did address having a plan to kick off so late at Stanford, and addressed having a plan for the next couple of weeks after that, while Notre Dame will fly back in the wee hours of Sunday morning and not know when its next game is for a little over 7 full days.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Marcus Freeman is we have to live in the moment, but clearly behind the scenes, he's always a guy who is preparing ahead. He's like, we can't go into this Stanford week and not have a plan for what it's going to look like after, especially there's a pretty decent chance that they have another big game coming up. They won't fully know that until the following weekend after conference championship games, but he is prepared. He said they're going to get together with the sports science team to maybe make a little adjustments throughout the week to get them ready for a 10:30 Eastern start in the night. So there's definitely things they're doing to get prepared, but he's also doesn't think they need to redo everything, but it's a long flight, late kick, and they'll probably be getting back late, but at least there's nothing they have to get to right away.
I was kind of wondering along that vein. I know it's a 10:30 Eastern time kick, so your body has to adjust. Everybody's out there. But their wake-up time is a little bit better. You can wake up and you play a game at 7:30 where you are. I just wonder if it maybe is not as big of a deal for them in this situation. You're playing football when you normally would be playing football after you wake up. So if your clock can reset in that situation, it's not as bad. I know everybody, that's a 10:30 Eastern time, but I don't think these guys should be tired. They're not sports writers trying to figure out how much coffee they're going to have. Like, you guys are going to be thinking about that at 10:30 that night. I can't drink coffee late at night. So.
And I think game 1 at Miami was 8 p.m., right? So it was a late night and a Sunday night kick at that. So it's not as though Notre Dame hasn't had some later kicks, or that these aren't young people full of energy. T.O., any other notes from today's press conference?
That's my point. Of like, Marcus might be tired, but I wanted to point out just on Jeremiyah Love, Drew's talked about his numbers. He's 185 carries. I think if he gets to 200, it might be great if Jeremiyah Love retires from that game with 12 carries and 187 yards. He needs 131 to break Vegas Ferguson's rushing record. 301 carries was what Vegas Ferguson had in 11 games that year. And I will point out, if he scores 3 touchdowns, he will tie Jerome Bettis' real record of 23 touchdowns, because I like to include Sugar Bowls when you beat number 3 Florida as an actual game that counts as well.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, I believe he sits on 20 after another 3 touchdown performance, 17 of those on the ground, 3 of those via reception. He almost had a 4th. We saw them try to slip him downfield and get him a gash play. Drew, any other items for you from today's Marcus Freeman press conference?
No, I mean, I agree. There wasn't a huge eventful, not a lot of Stanford questions, even though he did point out there are 4-1 at home, so it will be interesting to see if this is a team that gets up a little more for that, especially after the big win last weekend.
I think the Frank Reich is a good point. Frank Reich, if it's potentially his last game, is a rallying point for Stanford. These rallying points don't last 4 quarters.
Right. Yeah, because Frank Reich took that job as a favor to Andrew Luck and stepped into a truly toxic situation. If you talk to people in the building out there, it was really bad, and he's done an incredibly admirable job of guiding Stanford along really some unprecedented circumstances over the course of this season. We've got just tons of content coming, the written variety, the spoken variety with the Irish Illustrated Insider podcast, recording in about 15 minutes after we leave here. Player interviews and another instant analysis, if you can tolerate it, from Tim O'Malley and Andrew Mintock tonight after player and coach interviews. That's going to wrap us up for now. 5 days away from the Super Bowl at Stanford. He's Tim O'Malley. He's Drew Mintock. I'm John Brice. This has been Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Events Center in what is today Gray, Elkhart, Indiana. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.